Now, let's bring this into something that we can hold on to. Those of you with, that have been them teenagers, right? So let me walk us through the stages. I got a couple boys, 3 of them, and right now, daddy's everything to them. You know what I'm saying? Like you in that stage where daddy is amazing. He's Superman, he can do anything, he knows everything. And I love the stage, but I know the stage isn't gonna last. Why? Because the cocky 13-year-old's gonna come that thinks he knows everything. And a lot of us, we get like that with God. We're that impulsive, impatient little teenager thinking we know what life is all about. And he says, son, you ain't even understanding what life really is. You still tucked under a wing you have never experienced. But you know at 13, you ain't hearing none of that. You think dad's a fool. And we get that attitude towards God sometimes. We don't think he knows what he's doing, not realizing that he's been tempted every way that we have, yet without sin. He can relate to us in every possible situation that we ever walk into because he's been there and done that. So you go through them teenage years and dad tries giving you the advice to what? To help you, to lead you, because you're not the trailblazer you think you are. There's one that has walked this path before you. That's what a dad's for, to raise young men the right way, like to know right from wrong. Why? Because daddy's done a little bit of stuff. He's experienced some things. He's been around the block a time or two. He knows what he's talking about. And if he could just get the son to listen, it might save him some heartache, that he might follow, imitate me as I imitated the one before me. So let me get some practical advice with this. When you were a teenager and dad wants to set a curfew, right? Some of the best advice my dad has ever told me is get your butt back home before midnight because nothing good happens after 12. That's amazing advice. But when you're 16 and finally get your car, you don't want to hear nothing about that. Why? Because your friends are out having fun. There are some things that look good after midnight and you want to test those things, right? 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., there's some fun stuff going on. So we think. And yet, when we reflect, when we get in our 20s, and we think about all the times that we've gotten in trouble or that things have brought trial and tribulation into our life, or those regrets that we so wish we could take back, and we start reflecting when they happen, and you're like, oh, daddy was right. After midnight, none of this stuff would have happened if I'd have been back home like daddy told me, but in bed, instead of out partying, instead of out doing this, that, or the other, with this, that, or the other. And it's exactly what we saw God do to these Israelites. He led by a pillar of fire, that he exposed the trail. This is what to do. And here's the pitfalls, because daddies always bring the pitfalls with it. Like if you stay past midnight, this is what could happen. Why? I've seen it, son. I've been there. I'm trying to show you a better way. And that's what God is doing in our life. Day in and day out, trying to show us his way for our life, that we might not stay out past midnight, proverbially. That we might follow and trust him that the left and right, it ain't so good. Even though it looks fun and it's enticing, it ain't really all it's cracked up to be. There's heartache there. There's regret there. There's trials you don't have to go through should you stay with me, son. So I'm admonishing us today to trust in this fire of a God who is so gracious that he not only reveals his truth to us, but he shows us the pitfalls. What do you think this Bible is? You think it's about a rule book of do's and don'ts? No, there's wisdom in these pages. What's David say? What's David say in Psalm 119? Your word is a lamp for my feet, a light on my path. It shows you where not to go just as much as it shows you where to go. It's a lamp for my feet. It ain't just a pin light. It ain't just like old school lantern, like just revealing a little bit. It's a consuming fire of God reaching the heavens and showing you blaringly everything you need to know as you walk. Yes, it's do's and don'ts, but it's to save you from heartache. It's not rules and regulations to get you to heaven. It's to allow you a life, and a life lived to the full, avoiding some of the missteps, because daddy trying to set you straight. All we got to do is have hearts to believe and not harden to him like a teenager. Because when them teenage years are over, you get 25, you realize dad knew what he was talking about. You may not tell him yet, but you understand that dad was right more often than he was wrong. That he evidently was around the block a time or two. That he's been there and done that, even though we thought he was old and outdated. By 30, 35, you telling him, Dad, you were right. Why? Because you've swallowed pride now. You've matured and grown now. And God is trying to bring us into that part of the relationship and avoid them teenage years. That you might experience His goodness and greatness sooner. Because you meant to have life. Jesus came to give it to you, and life to the full. To avoid all the heartache that could come from blazing your own trail, and simply follow the one that's blazing the trail ahead of you. Let Him do all the work and the guidance, and you just simply trust and obey in this.